Hi, I'm Terri Murphy, Senior Editor for Realty Times, Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, in the men's room with Murph. And today we have two great men in the men's room, and they have a lot to do with real estate and finance. My longtime colleague, Michael White, who's the president of IMT Coaching, Improve My Tomorrow Coaching. We've been partners and colleagues for a long time. Hey, Mike?
Yeah, I think, it's a little longer than we both care to admit, but let's just say we're well past our silver anniversary.
Well, isn't that fun? And the good news is we did a great program years ago called Golden Partnerships, talking about how agents and loan originators can work together compliantly for the benefit of the customer. And so it's just wonderful that we brought in Chris Sims. And Chris has been a long time, actually almost as long, don't you think? With Mutual of Omaha now. He's the Senior Vice President of Retail Sales with Mutual of Omaha, with a brand new platform that we get to talk about. And welcome, Chris.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Glad to be with you both.
Well, you know what? One of the things you find out in the real estate industry are the people that are the troopers that stay with you through the whole thing. And real estate's in some disruption. Would you all agree?
Yeah, just a little
Yeah,
bit.
I think, we've seen this happen multiple times in the time that we've been in this business, the ebbs and the flow, the peaks and the valleys. And this is just another one of those times where we seem to see a fork in the road of both the mortgage industry and the real estate industry going through a pretty significant shift in how business is being conducted and the models that they're employing going into the future. And while it can be a little bit scary for some people, I just think it presents a tremendous opportunity going forward.
Absolutely. And that's why we have Chris with us today, because if you recall, there's pressure on profitability for brokerages and teams. There are things that are now more compliant than they were even a few years ago, Mike. And so Chris is here to tell us a little bit about a program from Mutual of Omaha. One's a broker advantage, which would deal with managing brokers, and the other one is the agent advantage. And this is a new opportunity to make referrals profitable, but more importantly, create a transaction history of trust that will compensate everybody in the end. So, Chris, tell us a little bit about this new program you've got with Mutual of Omaha.
Yeah, so as we've seen with the NAR settlement going into place and revenue becoming scarce, not just because of the changes, but just adding the fact the low inventory side that we're continuing to battle with. And so as brokers and agents alike are looking for opportunities to generate additional revenue coming in, there have been some changes that have happened inside of the federal government with how FHFA and Ginnie Mae have all looked at licensing, dual licensing around mortgage and real estate. And partly to do because both of us, both a mortgage loan officer and a real estate agent, carry a fiduciary responsibility to the consumer. So just because both of us carry that responsibility, it now enables the opportunity for you to carry responsibility in both sets, which means you can also now benefit from both opportunities. You can benefit from the real estate transaction and the mortgage transaction. And so what Mutual of Omaha has done is they've created two different programs. One is a broker advantage program where the broker or a large team leader might have an opportunity to become an employee of Mutual of Omaha and run a branch through Mutual of Omaha, that at which point the loan production then goes through and has the opportunity to run through them and their branch as they help manage that piece of it. On the realtor advantage piece, what we're doing is we're allowing that agent to get licensed as an MLO, where they then can work with a seasoned mortgage loan officer and help with the mortgage transaction. They'll begin that mortgage transaction. They'll perform the necessary duties they need in order to receive compensation. And then at which point that loan will be wrapped up by the production team at Mutual of Omaha. And it's provided several different benefits besides the fact of compensation, but it provides the opportunity too for the agents to kind of have an inside look and truly have a handle on that mortgage transaction and can control good pieces of it too. And we know in our industry, that's one of our biggest things. We have so many different hands in the pot trying to follow this transaction through the process and make sure everything's done correctly, this gives the agents that opportunity to kind of be behind the scenes, so to speak, especially around the mortgage piece.
Well, and I think Chris, you make a great point with that. That point, the connection between the two, the reality of the interaction between the realtor and the lender. We often have communication issues. We also have, trust issues. And I think there's always a fine line between what is compliant, what is legal, how things go, and where the money is flowing to, and everybody's, I guess, their feeling on, gee, that person does so little and they make so much, or what have you. You get a better understanding of what each person's responsibility is when you're deeply invested, in both sides of that. And with the relationship, where a lot of these things, at least in my point of view, a lot of the joint ventures of the past and things that have failed to produce as people expected, is really built into the fact that there's a lot more moving parts than a lot of people give credit to. And I think with the program, as you guys have it designed over at Mutual of Omaha, is that realtor or that broker has a huge fallback position by having an entire team behind them to be able to, go through that transaction and make sure they're viewing it from all the appropriate sides so that client, that consumer is really experiencing the best possible outcome and really knowing what all their options are. And I think that's hugely different than what a lot of people are used to in the mortgage business, especially so much of this being done online now. And the conversation I keep getting back from the streets is that so many companies are going into AI. So many of this stuff is online with a computer. So much of this stuff is text message. And what I see you guys doing and what I've always preached, and I know Terri and I have been at the forefront of that personal connection, that communication, the value in the relationship. And if you will, I'd really like you to spend a few seconds to go over the power of the relationship, especially when it's powered by a company like Mutual of Omaha.
Yeah, so there's several pieces to it, right? First of all, when you look at the average consumer, will buy between 3 to 5 homes inside their lifetime, but they'll end up doing anywhere from 11 to 15 different mortgage transactions through the process. And we tend to look at this transaction as a transaction as opposed to a relationship. And so one of the beautiful benefits of this program is this allows that agent / broker to maintain the relationship with that past consumer. They have the opportunity to benefit from the technology and services that we utilize to help keep in contact with that consumer, but also continue to update that consumer and keep them top of mind, so to speak, and relevant in today's terms with the information they continue to see around mortgages and interest rates and all the different opportunities that come that then have a consumer questioning, do I need to refinance? Do I need to look at taking out a home equity loan? These are all things that stand to benefit through Mutual's Broker Advantage program back to not only the agent, but also the broker in this type of scenario. So it isn't just a one transaction and done. And we've all seen the studies too, where NAR, as well as various other companies have done the study where 85% of the people have said after they finished their transaction that they were satisfied, they were happy with who they did their loan with and the person that served them through the real estate transaction. But yet 5 years later, they don't end up calling that individual. I think it's less than 20% end up going back to the original loan officer and the original real estate agent should they turn around and sell. So that becomes that piece of, in this process, the mortgage industry has really made sure that we try and not only have technology, but ways of continuing to keep in a relationship with that consumer that a lot of times on the real estate side, they don't have the same ability and the same assets to be able to do that. So in our case, we've been able to develop those, and this is now helping those agents be a part of that and not only be in touch, but stay in touch and stay top of mind to that consumer, which makes it an exceptional opportunity for future business, future not only refinances, but possible purchases. And again, the one thing we also know too, that if consumer walks away and they're satisfied, the multiple opportunities that could come from the referrals from that piece of it as well. So this continues to just expound, and the more you have a chance to bring value back to a consumer time and time again, the more times they're out recommending you, the more chances you have to gain additional business. And you start seeing that exponential growth. And so we've seen some opportunities inside of our existing Broker Advantage program and our Realtor Advantage program, where they've started taking advantage of these and being able to not only stay connected, but stay top of mind.
See, it's always, for Mike and I, it's always been relational. And as a coach, as a business coach, there's so much money that's left on the table because it's not a one and done. I mean, people don't need a house every day, but they need money every day. And so that's where the loan originator professional and the realtor can work together, because there's many facets of home ownership that require money. The one thing, though, that I think was really important that you mentioned is that whoever that designated person is within the franchise or the company or the brokerage doesn't have the burden of some of the other issues if you were an actual loan originator, because we know that companies in the past have tried to bring in a loan professional. Agents don't want to work with them for whatever reason. If you're listening to this and you already have your favorite loan originator, that doesn't mean they can handle everything. And then you want to look at your time and investment of leveraging your own database to give other people business. What kind of reciprocity can there be there to help continue nurturing that client? And that's the one thing agents do not do consistently, over the generalization of it, where they don't nurture the relationship after the transaction. So tell us a little bit about, for brokers, what are some of the benefits?
Well, and let me take a quick step back and just look at if you look at the traditional joint venture model, we're going to have a broker come in and you're going to have a mortgage company come in, and both are going to have to put up $150,000 a piece to start a real legitimate company that both have ownership in, and then both have 100% compliance responsibility and liability, by the way. Now, all of a sudden, you have an opportunity to kind of avoid and pass all of that and literally not have to worry about any of it. You don't have to worry about the licensing piece. You don't have to worry about the compliance piece tied to both parties owning the company. You now have a real estate broker who is an owner in a real estate group or a large team lead that then is now a producing branch manager for us. And so Mutual ends up carrying that responsibility. But at the same time, too, in most joint venture situations, we don't see them being very successful, partly because nobody ever feels it's theirs. The mortgage company feels it's the responsibility of the real estate company to push the opportunities to mortgage, and the real estate company feels it's the mortgage company's responsibility to build those connections and trust. In this case, both parties hold responsibility in that relationship because it's theirs. It's 100% both of theirs. And so they both stand to benefit, and they then take a much better ownership in that process had they have done a joint venture. And so we're starting to see a much better capture in those relationships because of that, as opposed to just the traditional joint venture model, or even the desk rental side, where your broker really doesn't necessarily care if they're getting any business from the desk rental because they're getting a guaranteed check. So that mortgage guy isn't getting any opportunities. He's having to truly work it himself. In this case, both the broker and the person that's in that office, the mortgage person, have the chance to really work those opportunities together and stand to have the better benefit and the bigger bang overall.
So Mike, chime in on this. So you and I both know that sometimes as brokerages and companies and franchises try to offer services, they don't always get supported by the agents themselves. And as a coach yourself, knowing that loan originators traditionally have had a love-hate relationship with realtors over the years. And by the way, for those of you listening, I'm licensed. Tell us, what do you see as how helpful this can be to support the relationship for retention and recruiting in both the lender side and the agent side?
Yeah, and I think that's really a solid point. I mean, there's nothing that gets more interest from people than them being, a part of the process, and, having real skin in the game, right? The agent benefits from, the outcome. And in a lot of other places where traditional brokers would have a desk rental or a relationship with a mortgage company, the agents themselves had no opportunity to participate, right? And so here is that opportunity that can be brought across the spectrum if the broker wants to make that happen. The individual agents can control their own destiny because we all know real estate's not the same as it used to be. There's many of your top producing realtors are part of a much bigger entity, but they have their own little microcosm. And so them being able to manage that is significant. And one piece I want to touch on that kind of got talked about before, but is really important is if you're a realtor and you've got a loan officer that's really great and you love working with them and they do a great job, nothing prevents them from becoming part of the Mutual of Omaha team themselves. So whether it's, a small individual mortgage person or whether it be, a small mom and pop mortgage company that's struggling to stay afloat, the possibility is out there that this may be a beneficial, position for all of them to look at. And again, that's where we all have to start paying attention is the business is moving. There are different business models that are happening. And the worst part about this is people are getting committed to processes without being aware of all the different opportunity and options that are out there. And it's just like in my years coaching people in the mortgage business. You never assume what's the best thing for a client. You never assume what price, what program, how much down. No, you get the whole story. You paint the whole picture. You share with them what all of their options are. Because what you may pick or what I may pick or what Chris may pick is different. That's why they make, remember Henry Ford, right? Originally, you could have a Ford Model T in any color you wanted as long as it was black. And that was fine because he was the only one making cars. But as soon as other people started making cars and offering multiple colors, guess what Henry had to do? Guess what? People want a blue Ford or they want a green one or they want a white. That's what we have to look at is there's no one size fits all. And this is going to become, in my opinion, an option that everybody should at least investigate, if not participate.
And Chris, do you have anything to add to that? Because I would just say, if you're listening to this and you're looking for a seamless way to add profitability and certainly other additives to your value set, you say it's a 15-minute strategy call to see if it's a good fit, right?
Yeah, easy. Yeah, 15 minutes gives us the opportunity to kind of dive into what you're looking to accomplish with your goals and what you want to do with your relationships and how can Mutual of Omaha best achieve that opportunity and bring you value. And that's really the key is how do we bring you value as an organization and as a mortgage company that then allows you to grow your business, bring value back to your consumers, and still make it an affordable product and program. And in this case, you're now bringing those two pieces together, which does help significantly in that not only controlling the cost piece, but also allowing the opportunity for both the realtor and the mortgage company themselves, the loan officer, to stay connected through that transaction, which brings a much better experience overall. And I'll tell you, like Mike said originally, communication is the biggest gap we run into in this industry. And by helping bring those two pieces together, it makes a significant impact in that communication piece.
Communication is the one thing, especially with the newer generation that's not always forthcoming. It's assumed, and I'm just going to say that's not a way to go. Here's the thing, though. If you want to know exactly how much money you're leaving on the table, I would say run the numbers with Chris. See how it could change the trajectory of where you are next year at this time. And with all the low issues for entry, it seems like a great idea as the industry is shifting. And Mike, you and I both know money's something everybody seems to need every day besides, coffee and air. So wouldn't this just be a great opportunity for both agents and their companies to look at?
Yeah, and I think, again, it doesn't cost anything to find out. It's like everything else. You're going to have a conversation and you'll know very quickly whether this is a path you want to investigate further or it's not a path you want to bother with. And you know what? It costs you nothing to find out.
And Chris, you've already told me it's available everywhere except one state.
It is in every state but one.
Yeah.
That would be the state of New York.
There we go. But here's the thing, if you're not there, why don't you give Chris, and Chris, what's the best way to reach you?
You can reach me at csims, that's CSIMMS, at mutualmortgage.com, or you can call me at 314-399-2656. Again, that's 314-399-2656. And from there, we can get you some additional information.
Yeah. And Michael, in case somebody just needs a mortgage coach to help everybody get with the program, what's the best way to reach you?
It's really simple. It's Mike at imtcoaching.com. Just reach out. Let us know that you saw this, and we'll be happy to walk you through it.
And Chris, I know that this is because the landscape is changing while we inhale. I'd like to invite you both to do a regular segment so we can update the industry. And of course, there's a huge percentage of consumers that enjoy realtytimesnewstv.com that would like to know what their options are. And I think you did that beautifully. I want to thank you both for joining us here at Realty Times News TV. Join us again next time in the men's room with Murph, with Chris and Mike, when we can tell you about opportunities to make more money and have a great life. Thanks for joining us.